Every time you let it slide, you think you are being the bigger person. Her mind is registering something completely different. You let it go because you did not want to make it a bigger deal than it needed to be. She was late. She said something dismissive. She dropped a commitment without much explanation. And you absorbed it quietly because starting something over it felt worse than just moving on. And in the moment that probably felt like the mature choice, the patient choice, the choice of a man who does not sweat the small stuff. But here is what was happening in her mind while you were being patient. She was not registering your patience as strength. She was registering it as information. Specifically, information about what she can do and what the cost of doing it is. And when the cost is consistently nothing, the behavior tends to continue. Today, we are breaking down the psychology behind this pattern. Why letting things slide feels kind but often works against you. And what a different approach looks like that builds genuine respect without creating unnecessary conflict. Before we get into it, subscribe and drop a like right now. This channel is built for men who want the honest psychology behind the small moments that quietly shape the dynamics of every relationship they are in. And the Magnetic Masculinity ebook in the description is the complete practical system for men who want to understand how to respond to these moments in a way that builds respect rather than eroding it. The link is below. Grab it today. Here is what the pattern looks like over time. It starts with something small, something genuinely too minor to address, and so you let it go. That is fine. One time, in isolation, that is just perspective. But then it happens again. And you let it go again because you already let it go last time, and bringing it up now would mean bringing up last time as well. And that feels complicated. And then it becomes the norm. The behavior that was initially a one-off has now happened enough times that it is just how things work between you. And you have taught her, through your consistent silence, that this is the floor of how she can treat you. Not because she planned it that way, not because she is calculating against you, but because human behavior is shaped by feedback. When behavior produces no consequence, it tends to repeat. When it produces a response, it tends to adjust. Your silence was not neutral, it was feedback. And the feedback said this is fine. Psychologist Dr. B.F. Skinner's foundational research on operant conditioning established something that applies directly to this pattern. Behavior that is not responded to tends to be repeated. Behavior that receives a consistent response tends to be modified in the direction of that response. This is not about blame. It is about the basic mechanics of how human behavior is shaped in close relationships. Dr. John Gottman's research on relationship dynamics found something specific about how women experience men who consistently absorb poor treatment without response. His research showed that women in these dynamics do not develop deeper appreciation over time. They develop less respect, not because they consciously decide to, but because a man who accepts anything is a man whose standards cannot be found, and standards, even when they occasionally create friction, are fundamental to felt respect. Dr. Robert Cialdini's research on social influence found that people calibrate their behavior based on the responses it receives. When disrespect produces no meaningful response, the brain registers that the behavior is within the acceptable range. When it produces a calm, clear response, the brain registers that it has reached a limit that will be enforced. That registration changes behavior, not always immediately, but consistently over time. Here is what happens in her mind. Here is the specific sequence that plays out when a man consistently lets things slide. First, initial comfort. In the short term, her experience of not being called on her behavior is comfortable. There is no friction, no conversation she has to navigate, no accountability she has to hold herself to. And that comfort feels like ease. Second, subtle recalibration. Over time, her subconscious recalibrates what is acceptable in this dynamic. Not through deliberate decision-making, through the simple accumulation of evidence. Every time something went unaddressed, her internal model of what this relationship will and will not tolerate was updated, and the boundary of what is acceptable expanded. Third, reduced respect. This is the part that surprises men who thought their patience was building goodwill. Dr. Gottman's research found that genuine respect in a relationship requires the perception that the other person takes themselves seriously. A man who absorbs everything without response does not communicate that he takes himself seriously. He communicates that he does not have a threshold. And a man without a threshold is a man without self-respect in the most visible sense. She may not articulate it. She may not even consciously register it. But the warmth and regard she has for him quietly diminishes in direct proportion to the consistency of his silence. Fourth, a dynamic that serves neither of them. The irony is that this pattern does not serve her either. The version of him that is most worth being in a relationship with is the version that holds his own standards. The version that is fully himself, including the parts that say this is not okay. His silence does not create a better relationship. It creates a smaller one. The alternative to letting everything slide is not becoming reactive or combative. Those responses create their own problems and their own damage. The alternative is calm, specific, timely honesty. When something happens that crosses your standard, address it once, clearly and without drama. Not as a lecture, not as a list of previous grievances, just as a direct statement of what you experienced and what you need to be different. It sounds like this: "That felt dismissive to me. I would like that to go differently next time." Or, "When you did not follow through on that, it affected my trust. I need that to be reliable." One statement, clear and specific, delivered without anger and without the need for an immediate resolution. Then you let it land. You do not over-explain it. You do not take it back to soften the moment. You say it, and you mean it, and you give her the space to respond to it. That approach does two things simultaneously. It gives her accurate information about where your standard actually is, and it communicates that you take yourself seriously enough to name what affects you. Both of those things build respect in a way that silence never can. Here is what this video is really about. Letting things slide is not kindness when it becomes a pattern. It is an abdication of the self that the people who care about you actually want to be in relationship with. The man who has standards, who holds them calmly, who names what matters to him without needing it to become a conflict, is a man who is fully present in his relationships. Not a smaller, more accommodating version of himself. The actual version. And that version, the one who is fully there, including the parts that say this does not work for me, is the version that earns the deepest and most lasting respect. Stop making yourself smaller to keep things comfortable. The comfort that creates is not real comfort. Real comfort is what happens between two people who both know where the other one actually stands. If this landed for you today, like this video and subscribe for more content that gives men the honest psychology behind the small moments that quietly shape everything. And if you want the complete framework for how to hold your standards, address what matters, and build the kind of genuine respect that most men spend years trying to earn through accommodation, the Magnetic Masculinity ebook is in the description. Practical, honest. The link is below. Grab it today.